Japan Up Close.
First, welcome to Japan Up Close. Can you give us a basic introduction to Recursive? So, for example, what are its primary goals, and what sort of people or teams are you working with?
So Recursive is an AI consulting company primarily, but we focus on a very particular niche. So we've decided to focus on AI for sustainability. So our main goal is to help Japanese companies implement AI solutions with a view towards implementing sustainable technology. So we believe that AI has this huge potential to actually transform technology throughout society, and in particular, with regards to sustainability, it can help make certain processes more efficient, or it can help aggregate data and give us a clearer picture of where things stand and point where we should focus our efforts next. And so we saw that there was this gap in the Japanese market where there's a lot of AI startups, but they're all offering these very standard products like things like OCR or HR management or something like that. And there's nobody really focusing on artificial intelligence for sustainability. And it's that gap we're trying to fill. Our main clients are, for now, big Japanese companies. We've noticed that, interestingly, big Japanese companies are, while they're slow, but they're actually not afraid to innovate and to take on innovative ideas. And so we're very happy to collaborate with them and give them some of our expertise in the AI research side to help them combine with their manufacturing expertise and materials expertise to try to come up with some more novel solutions.
So how can AI be applied to achieving the UN Sustainable Development Goals? And what are some of the specifics about what Recursive is doing to bring that to reality? What sort of projects are you working on?
This is something we're very, very passionate about. And yeah, as I've told you, we've actually created a whole company around this because we think it's a big gap in the Japanese market, and it's something that we're really excited to contribute to. So sustainability, maybe I'll give you an introduction into sustainability in general. So sustainability is all about trying to make sure that when we're developing our economic activity, we try to minimize our impact, both on the environmental side, but also on the societal side, right? And there's many tools we can use to do that. And of course, many of the tools are actually governmental. So how we actually structure our policies, how we go about doing things, and where we invest our money, right? But actually, many of the problems are very difficult to solve by governance alone. And so we believe that we need to develop new technologies to actually tackle some of the problems. So to give you an example, climate change or just environmental pollution in general, it's very hard to just fix these by policy changes because consumers expect to keep having more advanced products and to have the lifestyle that they've become accustomed to. So how do we keep this standard of living without having this huge impact on our environment, right? And so for that, we need to develop new technologies. We need to keep innovating and develop more efficient processes. And it's here that AI really can play a key role. So we've identified 4 areas where AI can contribute to helping the sustainability of businesses. And those areas are accelerated innovation, higher productivity, improving education and work, and helping with prevention and mitigation. I'll give you a quick overview of those 4 and how specifically AI can help. So in the realms of accelerated innovation, here the idea is precisely to develop these kind of next-gen technologies. So for example, when it comes to healthcare, AI is increasingly being used to find new drug targets and to develop new drug molecules. Or in the field of materials research, we can use AI to optimize material properties. So for example, the grid lattices or the chemistry composition of batteries to improve their energy density and therefore make, for example, renewable energies much more viable in the market. Another point is higher productivity. So this means basically for the human workers that they will be able to do more work or eliminate repetitive tasks that are really not stimulating the human creativity And that's not what humans are actually best at, right? So computers are better at doing repetitive tasks, right? So why don't we eliminate some of those tasks to actually make people more efficient and eliminate those moments of low productivity and improve their overall working conditions. And another kind of aspect of this is also when it comes to manufacturing and industrial production, can we reduce the waste that is created by, for example, if something is being done manually, often there's a lot of waste produced. But if we can have an optimized automatic process, often we can get by with much fewer raw materials to produce the same thing, and thereby minimizing our impact on the environment. Another point is better education and work. So we believe that AI has this huge potential as well to help people transition their skills, because what we're seeing is that precisely as these repetitive tasks get automated, and this is one of those things where kind of economy, the economic drive is pushing us more and more towards there, we need to make sure that people aren't left behind. And to do so, we need to make sure that they can express what humans can uniquely do, which is creativity, problem solving, understanding what our goals are and how we should fix them. And for that, we need to have much better technological, scientific education. And we need to make sure that we can tailor the roles to people's skills. And there, I believe that AI could have a really crucial impact, because we can actually identify and match skills to necessary labor shortages, right? And the final point is prevention and mitigation. So this is around basically using forecasting models and for example, image analysis of satellite imagery to predict, for example, catastrophes like fires or floods, and to also help with disaster response. So yeah, and those are the 4 areas we've identified, and I believe that really AI solutions can bring huge positive impact there.
About you personally, you've done a lot of work and study in many different parts of the world. Why was it that you chose to start a business in Japan? You mentioned earlier that the large Japanese companies are a little bit slow in adopting new technologies or AI, but they're not really fearful of doing so. Was that something that affected your decision?
Yeah, absolutely. So maybe to give you a bit of a background, I started doing a PhD in physics, and then I was working for Google DeepMind, which is the more academic research division in Google. And so basically the work there is mostly around writing research papers and coming up with novel ideas on kind of the progress of next generation AI. And it's super interesting work, but after a while I started to think, how can I have a more practical impact on the world with these skills that I've developed? And that's when I joined a startup here in Japan. And while working for that startup for 2 years as a research scientist, we worked with a lot of big Japanese companies. And in that period is when I realized, like, wow, okay, Japan is kind of behind in terms of the software side, in terms of the understanding of what AI is and how to actually write the software and implement it. But at the same time, it's clear that these companies are eager to actually step up and to actually have this this knowledge and to implement new products. Because yeah, I think you probably know better than I do, but I think Japan has this wonderful culture of not being afraid to try new things and being very accepting of novel technologies. And that's why we've seen, especially in past decades, we've seen Japan lead the way in terms of innovation. And now I think there's a bit of a slowdown because there's this lag in terms of understanding of the software side of things. And that's where I think me in particular and Recursive in general, we can make a big difference because we have that expertise. And so I think the collaboration is going to be very fruitful.
Okay, wonderful. Sounds very good. Now, but on the other hand, so AI can definitely have a lot of applications in creating social solutions, but there have been concerns that AI may become a source of social problems in the future or even in the present right now. What are some of the hazards that you are trying to avoid when you develop the AI systems that you create?
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. This is a super serious issue, and I actually think it's not being taken as seriously in Japan as it is in the West. So personally, I haven't heard too much about it here in Japan. And so I think actually one of the key parts of our mission is also going to be to raise awareness, specifically with our clients about this, to maybe avoid some of the missteps that have already been made in the West. So one of the big kind of it's not a problem, but it's a feature, but can also be a bug in AI, is that AI systems are very good at learning patterns from data, right? And so when we feed them specific data set, right, they're going to learn all the biases and all the correlations that are in that data set, be it good or bad, right? And so if we feed them, for example, a data set that where there has been systemic discrimination against a certain group, right, and we ask it to predict what are the future decisions. So, for example, let's say credit ratings or something like that, right? And if there have been the previous evaluations that the system is learning from have been devised by humans, then very naturally the system will pick up on those biases and will use them to kind of improve its loss in the, or to improve its accuracy in this data set, right? So yeah, so that's basically a bug, but also a feature in AI, and so it's very difficult to completely eliminate this. So what we need to do, and what we kind of believe is the right approach, is that we need to be very careful when developing these systems. And actually, there's a number of things that we can do that that can help us mitigate those things. And it's all about just being careful. So actually, I've devised a kind of a checklist of certain things that we should do. And the first thing I believe that needs to be done is, when even before we start developing an AI solution, we should make sure that we consider who are the people involved, who are the people impacted by this system. So, for example, if we have customers, then we should get customers on board even before we start developing, right? Or if we have something where we can affect certain different ethnic groups, then we should get representatives of all those groups involved so that they can have their say as we're planning it, right? And so with those voices during development, it could be that we can start to catch things, or just we're aware of it while developing it, right? So that when we're looking at our loss going down, right? So when we're training the system, we're doing some kind of optimization procedure, and we see the error going down, right? And it's working really well, right? But if we have this awareness that, well, just because this number is really low doesn't mean the system is working correctly, that means that we start immediately making kind of test cases and checks for all of these issues, right? And then after we've finished developing, there's another step where often people are very happy. It's like, oh, it finally works, so let's just deploy it, right? But actually, we need to be very careful, and we need to thoroughly test it before developing, right? And again, it's about getting every stakeholder involved. So if we get everyone who is going to be impacted by this system to actually beta test it, for example, then they might raise those issues in advance, and then we can start to address those, right? Either by, for example, increasing the size of the data set by making sure that certain minority groups are better represented, or even sometimes changing the algorithmic aspects of the software, so that, for example, certain features that are leading to discriminatory outputs are actually not taken into account, right? So we kind of blind the system to certain things to try to avoid those correlations. It's actually not, there's no one single recipe that we can do, but by keeping these issues in mind, then we can develop the algorithm and tailor it to try to debias it as much as possible.
So it sounds like much more of a social solution than a technological solution. You have to actually educate the people to approach the problem in a non-biased or more open-minded manner in that case. So is that true?
Yeah, I think it's both. So basically, I think you cannot solve it exclusively with technology, but you can also not solve it exclusively by saying, well, technology is technology and there's nothing we can do about it, right? Mm-hmm. So it's about the collaboration between these two groups and making sure that the society can feed their input into the development, and that's taken into account when we're developing the system. Right?
Okay, so I certainly hope that your clients are able to avoid those pitfalls then. Thank you very much for your time. This has been a very interesting conversation.
Perfect. Thank you. Yeah, it's been a pleasure.
Japan Up Close.